Welcome in. Last call, Caden and Jace Hodge for what is essentially a season finale. Finals week approaching here at the University of Indianapolis. So we won't have an episode for you next week. So like I said, that means Caden Colford and Jace Hodge on for the last time this season. Yeah, the tears are going to flow, but we'll save those for later. We'll get started with some UINDY sports. First with women's lacrosse, the 2022 national champions. Yep. This is a storied program that plays the best year in, year out. They played, I think, 5 ranked opponents this year.
Yeah, they have. I mean, they have 5 losses this year, but they all came to top 10 opponents. You look at some of their opponents, they lost to Tampa, 5th in the nation. Regis, 10th in the nation. Grand Valley was 10th when they played them. Florida Southern, number 2 in the nation. Obviously, they fell short in all of those games, but it's about playing those games and getting that experience that helps them, win those championships come playoff time. I mean, you look at conference play, they're 6-1 in conference play with their one loss being to a top 10 opponent in Maryville just yesterday.
The GLVC tournament will begin Friday, where UINDY will play Missouri Western in the GLVC championship. And after that, you're looking to go to the NCAA tourney and do some damage there. Moving now to men's lacrosse, similar story. They played, I think, 7 ranked opponents this year. They played both number 1 and number 2. They lost number 1, but
they beat number 2.
They beat number 2.
They did.
This team is good. This team is looking to do the same stuff that it does year in, year out. Like I said, winners win.
They do.
This lacrosse program, men and women, they do both. Moving now to softball, and softball's been tearing it up.
Softball, I mean, this is a phenomenal program. I mean, you look at them right now, 44-3. That's an outrageous record just to begin with. And now 3rd in the nation, one of the best seasons they've ever had in their history, if not the best season so far.
15 wins straight for softball, 15 straight. Only 1 conference loss on the year. That was to UMSL and a 3-2 ball game on the road. Kenzie Smith, 16-1.
Maybe the best pitcher in the nation, honestly.
I think not 16-1. She's a lot in one at this point. She was 16-1 when they played UMSL at that point. But we've had the opportunity to watch her pitch, watch her do her thing, and she's definitely up there for it. The best in the country.
I mean, look at her ERA. It's .2. It's .2 ERA. She's allowed 6 runs all year long, and also she's 26-1. That's her record. But it's not just her. She has Jaden Casebolt behind her, also pitching, the back end of the doubleheader. She's 15-1 this season, Casebolt.
Talk about a staff. Talk about a staff. And baseball, while it hasn't been as smooth of sailing as softball, they're still doing their thing, right?
They just won 6 in a row in a 4-game series sweep of Maryville, who was second heading into the weekend. 4-game series sweep of them, and UINDY now controls first in the GLVC for baseball.
First in the GLVC, they're creeping into the Midwest regional rankings as well. And that Maryville squad, they were ranked.
They were.
Too. So those were absolutely huge as you look towards the postseason for baseball. They're going to be exciting to watch. WICR is going to go on the road with both softball and baseball and their postseason attempts. So we're looking forward to that. What you're here for, probably the NBA playoffs. That's what's coming up next. We're going to look at the games that happened yesterday and preview a couple coming up this week after this.
Emma Donnan, elementary and middle school. Discover the Donnan difference. A school where you can celebrate others. Come together as a community. Be a part of a learning environment where students and teachers are appreciated. Emma Donnan, a culture that can't be beat, that's going onward together. A school filled with love. Emma Donnan.
I love my school.
Emma Donnan, elementary and middle school. Discover the Donnan difference. A school where you can celebrate others. Come together as a community. Be a part of a learning environment where students and teachers are appreciated. Emma Donnan, a culture that can't be beat, that's going onward together. A school filled with love. Emma Donnan.
I love my school.
Late April, you know what that means, NBA playoff basketball. But Jason and I joined by some company. We're going to call him our expert here on the NBA, Jake Helton. As we dive here into the playoffs, we're going to start with the Celtics as they play the Heat. Boston versus Miami. And it wasn't exactly a close contest, right? Boston, the clear favorite to run the East, 114-94 the final score. Takeaways from that, Jake?
I mean, obviously everybody's seen Jason Tatum had his first career triple-double, 23 points on the game, and the Celtics shot 47% from field goal in that game. And this was a game where it was just superior offense. They dominated every single aspect offensively from the jump. It was really never a close one. I don't think any Heat fans had any hope in that game.
Yeah, no, see, I mean, I agree. I mean, Miami, their lack of offense is because of Jimmy Butler. He's not playing, he's injured, he's out for possibly the entire series.
That's playoff Jimmy.
I mean, like you said, playoff Jimmy.
That's
you know,
the team.
when it comes to late April, May, I mean, this guy single-handedly took down Boston last season. I mean, Jimmy Butler is the reason the Heat are the Heat when it comes to playoff time. So the Heat, with the loss of that, this might be a 4-game series.
What's crazy to me is the fact that Derek White had 20. When you play Boston, you're game planning for JT. You're game planning for Jaylen Brown. For a lot of teams, you're wondering how you're going to go about the matchup with Kristaps Porzingis. And then Derek White comes and drops 20 on you as probably the 4th, if not 5th option on that team. What are you supposed to do?
Well, I'll also second that by saying they had 3 players come off the bench and drop 30 points. So that's another thing. You're never really expecting the bench players to come off and make such a difference like that. But 30 points off the bench, that moves their record to 38-4 at home on the season. So, I mean, I just don't see this team losing at home again in the finals.
Boston is just a different animal this season. I mean, they've been far and away the best team in the NBA in the entire season, and they're showing it now in playoff time too. It's about the playoffs, though. I mean, Boston, they tend to fail when it comes to playoff time. I mean, they made the finals 2 years ago. They obviously lost that series. But it seems like if Boston's going to win it, it's got to be this season. They have possibly one of the best starting fives I've ever seen in the NBA.
And looking at the Heat, I mean, their only hope really, Jaime Jaquez, who had a solid game, 16-4-4, and then Bam's doing everything he can playing against 7-whatever center. But do you see any hope for the Heat in this?
I can't see it. Charles Barkley in a halftime show, he mentioned that the Heat could go 100 for 100 from three-point line, 100 for 100 from field goal, and they would still lose to the Celtics. Obviously a little bit of an exaggeration, but that is a pretty accurate statement. I find it very hard to see this not being a 4-game series.
I mean, I agree. I think Miami might steal one at their place, game 4 maybe, but it's going to be a sweep or gentleman's sweep. There's going to be no difference. I think Boston wins the series fairly easily.
Tyler Hero, he's disappeared from that whole series, it seems like. He just had, 11?
Yeah, I mean,
11 on the day?
Since he came back from that injury, he hasn't looked the Tyler Hero we know he can be. You know, the shooter Tyler Hero, the hero that can create his own basket. He just hasn't looked right since the injury.
As we move now from that massacre to Clippers versus Mavericks, I think a lot of people were expecting a closer game than what we got. 109-97. Clippers almost ran away with this one.
I mean, they were up by a lot to begin. And I mean, Mavericks, they made their way back, but still easy for the Clippers.
For the Clippers, James Harden, PG, Russell Westbrook. You're playing with no Kawhi in this matchup as well. And they take the win against Luka and Kyrie, who both had over 30. How's that happen, Jake?
Well, it's a simple thing. They did not play aggressive in the first half. And when they came out in the second half, Luka was a lot more aggressive, looking to make passes, get his teammates the ball more, and it turned into Kyrie scoring a lot more points. I think he had 20-something in the second half. And it really comes down to the defensive end for the Mavericks. If Luka can guard James Harden, then they get the win right there. That's going to be the difference maker. Last night, James Harden, he did Luka dirty. He was spinning him around, putting him between the legs, behind the back, step backs everywhere. It was just a great showing for James Harden, one of the best games he's had in a very long time.
And the team around him too. Zubac, 20 rebounds, 15 points. Russ coming off the bench, a couple dunks for him.
Zubac is like the best center to complement what the Clippers have built with their big three. He's a great center. But the problem for me with the Mavericks is they just have no offensive weapons outside of Kyrie and Luka. It's just them two creating all the points for themselves, but there's no one else offensively that can be a threat. which then means that the Clippers can, dial in on those two guys. I mean, the game plan might be let them do their thing, but don't let a third guy beat you.
And we're seeing the Clippers as the higher seed in this matchup, but what everybody's saying is if you have the best player on the court, then you always have a chance. A lot of them referring to Luka. But I'll ask you first, Jace, when it comes down to it, who is the best player on the court? I don't know if it's a concrete answer right now.
It's not. I mean, there's 5 players you could say in this series that can be the best player on the court. I still think, overall-wise, it is Luka Doncic. I mean, the best scorer on the court, one of the best passers on the court.
Okay.
I think basketball-wise, he's the best player on the floor. I don't know if about teammate-wise, though. But player-wise, Luka's the best player.
Jake, what are you thinking?
I'd have to kind of agree with Jace, but I also think there's a difference in when it comes to the playoffs between the best player on the court and then the X factor. Zubac, the X factor of that game. The high pick and roll with James Harden, unstoppable. He gets one-on-one going downhill. I don't see anybody getting in front of him.
I've been thinking, I think if you take James Harden back to 2018 and compare him to Luka now, James Harden wipes Luka out of the water. We forget how good a prime James Harden was.
We
forget how good that guy was, and we saw it last night.
Yes.
That guy dropped 28 easily.
We were seeing the step backs that we used to see from him at Houston. We're seeing the aggressive play style coming off of screens, looking to score, looking to get teammates open. That's the James Harden that we're used to seeing. The past couple years, I feel like he just hasn't been playing his game.
That's a James Harden that led his team in the West, that had his team at the 1 seed while the Warriors were continuing their dynasty. James Harden right now, after game 1, he looks like the best player on the court.
I mean, I can definitely see it, but I mean, for Harden and even Paul George, they're coming towards the end of their careers. This might be their last shot to really make a run at a ring. I mean, Harden doesn't have one, PG doesn't have one. Obviously, Kawhi has that one in Toronto and the one in San Antonio. But for Harden and PG, this is really their last chance. And they have, to me, a favorable matchup here with Dallas. And if they advance past that, you look at the 1 seed, it's not the best 1 seed we've ever seen. Oklahoma City is easily beatable.
So the Clippers take an early lead against the Mavericks. And now we move to the hometown squad and the Pacers. They were on the road to play Milwaukee without Giannis, remember, but still fall 109 to 94. Pacers can't beat the Bucks without Giannis? Without Giannis?
This has become kind of a rivalry, in my opinion. You had the play-in tournament game, and then obviously the fiasco with Giannis's 60-point game ball or whatever. But coming in, obviously a little bit of tensions, but no Giannis. Damian Lillard takes over the first half. 35 points, almost outscores the Pacers by himself. I think the Pacers had 42 points, a season low at the half.
Yeah.
This was just a Pacers team that was all out of sorts. You've seen very simple, we talked earlier, almost high school mistakes. Jumping up in the air, getting caught and with nowhere to pass it to. Not the best shot selection, taking quick shots. And, I mean, with that, you're not going to win games, especially when you need to do just about everything right to win the game.
We were watching these highlights, and you've already seen 4 different Pacers guarding Damian Lillard. 4
That
different
isn't ideal.
Pacers.
You want to stick one guy on, maybe even 2 guys on him. When Lillard is the focus of the offense, you don't want to keep changing defenders. Obviously, you're trying to confuse him, but it just is Damian Lillard. This guy's name is Dame Time for a reason. Come playoff time, come these big moments, the step back 3, unguardable.
Pacers
The
don't
drives,
have that
unguardable. They don't have that guy. I think maybe the best option might be Aaron Nesmith at times, but we didn't really see much of him on him. Obviously, you don't want Halliburton on him. Halliburton's an iffy defender at best.
And speaking of Halliburton, nowhere to be found.
Not a great day.
Only 7 shots in the entire game, which is, I don't think he's had that low of a shot attempts all season. He's been aggressive, very aggressive, and that's why people enjoy watching Indiana Pacers basketball, because it's turned into something different than just your everyday go down, shoot a bunch of threes. They're playing like more real basketball, in my opinion. I enjoy watching a nice Pacers game, especially when they're up against someone like the Bucks. Yes, they're without Giannis, but this is a great team. They bring in someone like Doc Rivers, a championship coach, to try and win a championship, and they didn't have the best record when he first got there. It was a very rough start for the Bucks, but now they're getting healthy. They were dealing with some injuries. They're getting healthy. They're getting their team back, and in my opinion, by Patrick Beverley running the point, he took all the pressure off Damian Lillard and just allowed him to be
That was my
all-out
next point.
scorer.
That was my next point. Halliburton, the reason he didn't perform well is because Pat Bev was all over him the entire game. Pat Bev wasn't allowing anything. Pat Bev is a nuisance.
A nuisance,
to say the
always has
least.
been. But Jace, when Giannis comes back,
It might actually
What
favor
happens?
Indiana. I think it actually favors Indiana when Giannis comes back. Because that was the entire game plan of those 5 games in the regular season, was the Pacers let Giannis do his thing, didn't let Damian Lillard beat them. They made Giannis, go out there, he'll drive. He'll take away some of those three-point shots that the Bucks took yesterday from Malik Beasley, from Dame. I mean, Giannis, it took 64 points from Giannis to barely beat the Pacers. He had 2 separate 50-point games in that they lost to the Pacers. That's their game plan. Let Giannis do his thing, get out and run, and then just defend everybody else good enough.
and what are you thinking, Jake?
And I was going to say, that's a very good game plan. We've seen a lot of people use that with Joel Embiid. I mean, he had that one 70-point game they lost. Most of his games where he's scoring 50 and 60 points, they're not winning because he's taking 30, 40 shots a game. Nobody else is getting involved. So, like you said, I think Giannis coming back, in a way, kind of hurts the Bucks just in this series. Once they get out of this, I think they need the whole team to
100%,
keep going.
100%.
Pacers trying to figure out some matchup nightmares, currently down 1-0 in the series game 2 again in Milwaukee. Moving on to the final game of last night's slate, you had the Thunder taking on the Pelicans. Thunder the 1 seed, but they're not exactly Goliath. They look very, very beatable.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, Shea was named MVP finalist a couple days ago, and he came out and showed it. 28 points, the game game tying and go-ahead bucket at the end of the game. I mean, he was the difference in this one for me. He brought the offense in a game that was a little bit of a defensive battle, not what you would typically expect from these two teams, but only scoring 94 points and 92 points. Compared to the regular season, these teams were scoring north of 115 each. And so that's where it comes down to a thing. If the Thunder are able to outscore their opponent, they're going to win. When it comes down to a tough defensive battle, I think that's where they're going to struggle. They have that youth, and getting into the fourth quarter in crunch time, they showed that they had some grit last night. They got into a close one, had to fight and win it, but I think that's where they're going to get in trouble, those late games where you really need those veteran players to step up.
And this is where, I mean, they've been there all year long. They've been one of the toughest teams, in the NBA when it comes down to these close games. This is what they've done all year long, is win these close battles, tough them out. That's why they're the 1 seed in the West over the Denver, over the Minnesota, who, in my opinion, are actually better than Oklahoma City when it comes down to it. Obviously, OKC, they're the 1 seed, but they're very, very beatable. In New Orleans, they didn't even have Zion Williamson for this game. Imagine if New Orleans had a healthy Zion. I think they win this game and win the series fairly easily, to be honest. Obviously, Oklahoma City, they have the Shea, but who else do they have? I mean, they have Chet Holmgren. He's still a rookie. He's going to have mistakes in the playoffs. They have Jalen Williams, who's doing his thing scoring-wise.
He had 19 and 7 last night.
Yeah, I mean, he's been good for, I think he's one of the more underrated players in the NBA, but you can't always rely on Shea to be that main go-to guy.
But let me ask you guys, this is the Thunder's first time really being in a good spot where they can make a run at the chip, right? But we've never seen them in this spot before. And you have young guys like Shea, like Chet, like both Jalen Williams that have never really seen these bright of lights. And I think that's a big deal. I think that's why this game was so close, because you look talent-wise, especially without Zion, Thunder should be blowing the Pelicans out. But how much does experience weigh into that, Jake?
Well, that was something I just talked a little bit about, but experience is almost everything in these teams. That's why you see teams bring in people like your PJ Tuckers, your
James Johnson.
Yeah, those random guys you haven't heard of in 5 years. They come out of nowhere and they're on these championship squads. That's the voice in the locker room. That's what keeps your head on straight. When you go in at halftime, you're down 10, you need to get back in it. Your player, your star veteran is usually the player that gets you back into the game, gets everybody's head where it should be, and that's very important, especially with a young team like this, because it's very easy to get down on yourself. You miss a couple shots, you get down, and then it's off like nothing. But my question is, and the big question mark is, what's going to happen when Zion comes back? Everybody's wondering. I watched a little bit of the game last night, and Valanciunas, he messed up Chet Holmgren. With them two in the game, and I think Trey Murphy, yes, Trey Murphy. that's a lot of height down low. And
Yeah.
it's also a lot of size, too. Chet, tall guy, gets a lot of blocks, but Zion is pure muscle. That man is a Mack truck coming down the paint. You get out of the way when you see him coming. And then you also got to have someone. So you got to have someone to guard Valanciunas and Zion. And I just don't see how the Thunder are going to be able to manage that.
I mean, you need some strength, some bulk for both of those guys, and then Zion's not slow either. Zion's an athlete, can jump out of the gym. Can't wait to see him get back. But as we wrap up the playoff slate, we have the question of the day, a random question coming from our production room, and we're just awaiting that to see who, oh, there it is, who wins the NBA playoffs and who wins Finals MVP.
Sheesh, all the way
wow.
through.
I'm putting
Okay.
you on the spot.
Straight to it.
Two big questions, no messing around. Who wins the NBA playoffs and who is the Finals MVP?
I got mine. You want me to start?
Go ahead, Jace.
The Denver Nuggets and Nikola Jokic, back to back. I watched that game against the Lakers the other day. The Lakers were in that game, they were winning that game, but Denver is just very difficult to beat, especially with the team they have, with the experience they now have after winning the finals last year. I think it's going to come down to Denver and Boston. I think everyone expects that to happen, and I just don't think Boston can beat Denver and Jokic. I mean, Jokic is just, at this point in the year, you can't stop the guy.
Jake.
And I kind of have a very similar take to Jace, except I'm going to take the opposition. I'm going to go with the Celtics as my NBA champions. And you know what? A little bit of a dark horse for MVP champion, or Finals MVP, sorry. I'm going to go Jaylen Brown.
Okay, Jaylen Brown.
Jaylen Brown is one of those guys. He is a star athlete. On any other team, he would be number
guy,
one,
yeah.
maybe number two on some teams. But right here, he's got Jason Tatum. They're about neck and neck. Jason Tatum, in my opinion, a little bit leg up. He's got that elite offense, the mid-range. But Jaylen Brown's the quiet guy that you don't send someone to face guard Jaylen Brown, so he gets a quiet 30, and then you look back at the box score and you're like, what happened?
And you're thinking that you're getting the second best defender, or at least second best perimeter defender on the team on Jaylen Brown, a guy who, well, there's been some speculation about whether he can actually use his left hand or not. The guy is a bucket. The guy can score.
Yeah.
For sure. But you guys saying Boston and Denver?
You're going to agree?
Well,
You might
remember earlier this season
Oh, no, I
when
know
we
where he's
were
going.
really, really early.
I know where he's
early
going with
on,
this.
And the Clippers were sitting at 8th?
Yep, I
sitting
knew
at
he was
9th.
going there. I knew he was going
Clippers
there.
weren't doing anything, and I went off on a tear because I knew that they had the talent to do so.
I knew he was doing it. I knew he was going to do it.
I knew that the Clippers had the talent to do what they needed to do to get here and then get to that next level. Kawhi's going to be back. PG has played at an MVP level in his career. James Harden and Russell Westbrook have both won MVPs in their career. And the playoff experience on that team, unmatched.
That is
throughout the
true.
playoffs.
That's absolutely true. But my one worry when it comes to the Clippers is getting Kawhi back. Does that throw off the dynamic? You're already in the playoffs. It's not like he didn't play for the regular season and he's coming in at the start of the playoffs. He's going to miss pretty much maybe even an entire series and then come in and have to try and get back into the program. He hasn't really been practicing at all, they said. He's not even back to limited contact. So who knows when he'll be back. But I think that if James Harden continues what he did last night, if he can do that for an entire final, I think that they win. I think you have a very valid case.
I just don't see them get past Denver if they match up. I just don't see Jokic not beating
It's a
LA.
shootout. That's a shootout.
I feel like it's going to come down to a couple different games that are going to be some shootouts. It's going to be offensive battles.
But in terms of Finals MVP, you mentioned Kawhi. When he comes back, if he comes back, if he plays in the finals, they win. He's going to be Finals MVP.
Oh, yeah.
That's
It's
Kawhi
Kawhi,
Leonard.
it's
He's the
Kawhi.
guy on that team. He's going to be taking the last shot, given they need it. So Kawhi Leonard, if he's back, if he's not, James Harden. If he could play like game one, just 70% of the playoffs, then James Harden will be your Finals MVP. So what we have? We had Nuggets, Celtics, Clippers.
Yeah,
Clippers.
sure, why not?
Nice
We'll take
wide
it.
spread.
I think that we're in for some fun basketball this playoff season. I'm excited to see where it goes, both in the East and
It's
the West.
very
but I
unpredictable
do
this
think
year.
it's going to be a sprint to the finish for Boston
Absolutely.
and the East. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jake, for coming on.
Thank you.
It's been a blast. We'll be back for our picks this week, the Primetime Pick Em on Last Call.
Emma Donnan, elementary and middle school. Discover the Dawning Difference. A school where you can celebrate others. Come together as a community. Be a part of a learning environment where students and teachers are appreciated. Emma Dawning, a culture that can't be beat, that's going onward together. A school filled with love. Emma Dawning.
I love my school.
How about those Nuggets this year, Jace? It sounds like a chip to me.
They ain't going back to back. Ain't no one getting past Boston. They got a super team, man.
All right, Jace, check up. This is Last Call. Jace and I head-to-head on football, baseball, basketball, and everything UINDY.
Mondays, 6 p.m. UINDY TV on YouTube and Xfinity Stream Channel 1096.
So the overall mission here at Flannel House Indy is to help with the development and growth, the self-efficiency and self-sufficiency of the near northwest side of Indianapolis. When the AA closed in the area, that left the near northwest side a food desert. So Brandon Cosby, the executive director of Flannel House, started with the Flannel House Farms, where they grow fresh produce organically for the neighborhood around. And then later on down the line, Cleo's came about. So we're here to help with the sustainability of getting fresh food at cheap prices to the locals around. Black owned, black ran. That's the gist of Cleo's for the most part.
Back on Last Call for our season finale, Caden Colford, Jace Hodge, and you might have saw our commercial that we had during the break. It's funny how much we've changed since then. Probably me a little more visibly than you, considering the mustache got a little shorter, the hair got a little shorter. I think I lost a little bit of weight too. Praise the Lord, right? But as we move into our last Primetime Pick Em, we have 3 games on the slate, 3 playoff games, Cavs versus Magic, Knicks versus Sixers, and then Lakers versus Nuggets. We'll kick right off with Cavs versus Magic. And with my first pick, I feel like you can't go against home teams in the playoffs.
I mean, they're 8-0 so far. It's the first time since 2013 that they're 8-0 to begin the playoffs. I mean, the home court advantage is real. I absolutely agree. That's why I think we're both going Cleveland here. They outplayed Orlando in that game 1 as well. Mm-hmm. Orlando, they just have no offensive weapons really. It's their defense that wins the basketball games, but they have no offense at all.
I mean, Paolo had just over 20 points, I think 23 on the night for him, 24.
He's the only real threat offensively. In Cleveland, they have the bigs to shut that down.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that he had 9 turnovers as well. Banchero had 9 turnovers. That can't happen if you're the best player on a basketball team. I understand this guy's young, but we've also seen his ceiling, right, in the regular season. We've seen what this guy can do. And I feel like you can pull out a game against the Cavaliers, probably not at home. Not while Cleveland's at home.
Not in Cleveland.
But if Banchero can up his game, I see the Magic sneaking out 1, maybe 2, but Cleveland a matchup nightmare.
100%. This is the worst case scenario for Orlando. Unfortunately, they got Cleveland. Cleveland's going to take this series probably in 5.
I mean, high-powered offense versus high-powered defense. And we'll move now to the Knicks versus 76ers. And the Knicks are playing kind of a beat-up version of the Sixers. Joel Embiid probably still the best player on the court, even when he is injured, though.
That's debatable. You could say Brunson now, though he's been playing these last month or so, which, I mean, I think that's why I like the Knicks in this matchup. I mean, they beat up on the Sixers in the first game. It was a close game, but they pulled away late. They're going to do the same thing here. Philadelphia, they have the talent to stay in games, but with the injuries, they just can't, see the game out.
And I'm looking at New York as well, and I'm saying that they're stacked everywhere 100%. They need to be. Dante DiVincenzo
obviously,
is
they're missing Randall, which is a big miss, but they have enough to continue on here in the playoffs.
Their guard play has been absolutely phenomenal. Jalen Brunson is looking like an MVP candidate in the next couple of years. Dante DiVincenzo, as I said, he's been hitting the long ball almost better than anybody in the league. And then Josh Hart. Where did Josh Hart come from? He has been magnificent.
It's the Villanova guys, I'm telling you.
One of the best rebounding guards I've ever seen. This guy's had a couple 20-plus rebound games this season.
It's impressive, but it's nice to have that too. Crashing the boards like that, especially against a big and Joel Embiid, who right now has a hobbled up knee, so he can't really jump to full effect. So crashing those boards, and I think they won the board battle by 20 in Game 1.
And I think that continues, right? Especially if Joel Embiid continues to suffer from his knee injury, which I hope he gets back, because basketball in the NBA is just better when Joel Embiid's at his best. But I think Knicks will take that second. We'll see if Philly can sneak one out later in the series. But final game in this one, you have Los Angeles traveling to Denver. And while Los Angeles, they had a great first half against Denver, Denver showed why they're the champions and why they're almost a favorite to go back-to-back this year. Yeah. I'm sticking with them, too. You just can't go against...
You can't. I'm going to have to pick... I mean, we're going to go, same 3 teams for all games, but it was 3 fairly easy picks in my opinion. This one's the easiest of them all. Denver over LA. I mean, they 4-0 last year in the conference finals against the Lakers. They're going to 4-0 them again this year. The Lakers, they have the talent. If it was 2018, maybe.
If it was 2018, that's a good way to put it. I like the Lakers, how they set up their roster. They're a big team that works against a lot of squads.
They have a great roster. I mean, they have a great roster. Don't get me wrong, but those role players aren't providing what they need to. D'Angelo Russell had a horrible game in that game 1. He could not shoot the ball for life's sake. And then, I mean, LeBron James and AD are obviously going to go do their thing, but it's about the role players for the Lakers that have continuously struggled, which is why they struggle to win these games against Denver. Because Denver, they have those role players. They have the Jamal Murrays. I mean, obviously they have Nikola Jokic, who's best player in the NBA probably.
And if you turn that around, you're looking at Michael Porter Jr. with 19 on the night last night. You're looking at guys like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who's been playing great defense. They can hit the long ball.
They have more talent than they get credited for.
And then Aaron Gordon. Yeah. Aaron Gordon at the 4 is the Lakers' worst nightmare. He's the Lakers' worst nightmare. You have nobody that can guard him, because if you want to bring 2 to Jokic, then what are you supposed to do, right? 3 easy picks for us. We're decided on that, which essentially wraps out our pick 'em for the year. So why don't we take a look at what happened? Why don't we take a look?
I think he won. I think it's already over, isn't it?
It might be, Jace. It might be.
Oh, my goodness.
Woo! 21-16 in case you can't see it.
Good's off the screen.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, no.
There we go.
Got me in the airport picture.
Oh, man.
Jeez.
Look, that was hard fought. I'm not going to lie to you.
It was hard fought. You won by 7. It wasn't a hard fought. I got whooped.
Well, this is coming after 2 seasons of losing to Nathaniel, losing to Graham.
But you meant a bigger loser. Well,
no, I don't think I have. I don't think I have. No. But
it's all right.
It was only 7 games.
Only 7 games,
like you said, Jace.
Only 7 games. Yeah, no, I was never coming back from that. I mean, obviously, you want to keep your hopes high, but it's the hope that kills you, they say.
The hope that kills you. That's a quote. That's a yearbook quote. Watch out, class of 2024. But as we wrap up last call, this is indeed the season finale, and it's also going to be at least the last time in the foreseeable future that Jace is going to be next to me on the desk. So, Jace, I want to say that it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Me and you showed up on New Hounds Day together, and we're walking around trying to find everything.
Yeah, you're the first person I met on campus that I talked to.
Exactly. You were the first person that I met. And we walked around, we said, how many games are we going to call together? Well, we said, a lot.
Yeah, it's been a lot, hasn't it?
And we call it last call for a reason. We went to St. Louis. We went everywhere basically in the Midwest with the Kansas.
Yeah. It's been fun.
It's been a blast.
So 2 more years of that, kid.
Just 2 more years. We're still going to be on the radio, on live.
We'll still be there. I'm not like leaving or anything. I'm just going to a different show.
Jace is fine. He's still living, breathing, and feeling great. He'll be on Grand Slam Sports, also right here on UINDY TV. But big thanks to Jace. Big thanks to Nick Gordon working on the show. All of our post-production people. Kenna Machino, our director, has done a great job this season. Also working on the graphics like you saw. Me and Jace looking our best at all times. Liam Blaze behind the camera doing just about everything. I mean, this guy's scripting out the show. He's making sure the cameras are where they need to be. The set is how it needs to look. We're in place when we need to be in place, right? So Liam, big thanks to you as well. All of our guests, Charles Foster, Jake Helton, did a great job this year. Dylan Euler's helped out a lot. Everybody who's touched the camera, touched the paper, touched the desk, hey, big thanks from me and Jace. So, as time winds down, buzzer's about to sound. I'm Caden Colford saying for Jace Hodge, have a good evening. This is Last Call.